Ale tam miałem dużego kebaba, ja miałem średni kebab, to wiesz.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Red Man Group live from Warsaw, Poland. This is being brought to you by Tactical Soap, guys. If you want to get a few inches on your go ahead and go to www.tacticalsoap.com. Also, guys, get your crayons out. This is also being brought to you by the Next 21 convention that is going to be held in Orlando, Florida, October 24th through the 27th. For more information, go to the21convention.org. Now, we're here in Poland with great men, great people here, but let me tell y'all something. Since July 2007, Anthony Dream Johnson had a dream. And since then, he has been working his ass off to make that dream come true. Giving you the best of the best as panelists, giving you the best of the best as far as content, giving you the best of the best as treating you like not guests, but family. So we just want to say thank you to Anthony for having us here and doing what he's doing, because you know what? He's a hard-working motherfucking man. And I can't say motherfucker, but I'm going to say it this time. All right. So what we would like to do before we even get into today's topic and everything, I want to go around and introduce, not me introduce, I want everyone to go around and introduce themselves to everybody. So if you haven't heard these guys or never met these guys, unless you're living on planet Mars or something, you should know them. But Socrates, why don't you start off and let them know about
you? You let that cat out of the bag.
Yeah, yes.
I'm Socrates.
Oh, take two.
I'm Socrates with Manning Up Smart. I run a relationship blog, and I help people navigate today's sexual marketplace. And I'm also a very strong and active vocal advocate for fathers and fatherhood.
Richard Nicolai. I blog at freetheanimal.com. This is my fourth time at this convention as a speaker, and taking nothing away from the previous, it has been great. I love this country, Poland, Warsaw, the people, everything, every inch of it. So that's it. Jack.
All right, my name is Jack Donovan. I'm the author of The Way of Men, a book about defining masculinity in a universal sense. I'm also the author of a book called Becoming a Barbarian and Becoming a More Complete Beast. You can find me online at Start the World on Instagram.
I'm George Bruno from georgebruno.com. I cut hair as a trade. I'm a content creator all the other time. And to quote my 22-year-old daughter, behind every great woman, there is a great father. And I like to consider myself a father to many who, I don't speak to everyone. I don't claim to speak to everyone, but those who receive help and wisdom from me, I'm happy that you are my adopted and surrogate sons and daughters.
Thank you. I'm Piero San Giorgio. I'm probably the top-selling survivalist author in Europe. And I've had 20 years in the IT industry and international development of markets. Father of 4, married still. And very happy to be, it's my first time here at the 21st convention. I must say that I'm very, very happy to have been here. I'm very glad that you invited me. And I would have paid to come here because it was really, really great.
I'm Ivan Throne, author of The 9 Laws and host of DarkTriedMan.com, IvanThrone.com. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with all of you, and especially to be a part of what Anthony Johnson has so single-mindedly and powerfully put together over the last 15 years or so. It's an astonishing thing to be a part of. I want to make sure all of you are aware of the opportunity coming in October in Orlando to be a part of it.
And myself, I'm Steve the Dean Williams from themanmindset.com. I'm also lucky enough to have shows on the Red Men group. We have the Red Pill Mindset, myself and Donovan Sharp, the Red Pill, the Red Man Live, I'm tongue twisted. Thank you. Now let's get into it. Now, before we get into our topic, Anthony is always cool and everything. We was getting ready, guys. I'm fronting him right now because we was about to talk some yak about the Manosphere, which we're going to get into. But Anthony gave me a little bit of bad news that I want to discuss with the panel. Now, we know there's going to be a woman 007, but we just got news straight from Anthony Dream Johnson that we are going to have a female Thor. Socrates, what say you on that, sir?
I am absolutely all fucking for this. I'm going to be taking my entire family the entire goddamn day. I can't wait to see a woman pick up the hammer of feminism and take it to the world and smash the living shit out of civilization, destroy humanity and masculinity in the process. And then at the end of the movie, see her cat circling her in her apartment like sharks did the life rafts of the Indianapolis as she sits there drinking cheap box wine. That is a movie I'm going to want to pay to see again and again and again. Feeling better?
Yeah, they'll call it Game of Thor.
Game of Thor.
I think he stole all the thunder on that one.
Yeah.
So let me just address the 007 thing, and I think they ought to rename it as 00 Sandwich.
All right. Well, I mean, Thor in the Marvel sense is just a comic book hero. So it's a story for children, and it's never been historically accurate to the actual figure of Thor, who has archetypes that have gone back, thousands of years. So if they want to make everything into a joke, then they can do that and continue their clown world.
I just say, why? Why? What is the purpose of it? Is somebody trying to even the score?
Well, at least we haven't had Dakota Fanning play Conan the Barbarian yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. They're not onto that
You
yet.
talk about evening the score, and I think a lot of it has to do with, especially with Hollywood and the media, they have the ability to create imagery, so to speak, and they've moved from entertainment into ideological underpinning. It's not about entertaining so much as it is about reinforcing their own worldview, so to speak. And it's all great and fun until society collapses. And the portrayal of iconic characters like Thor or James Bond or so on with ridiculous casting choices is simply one way to destroy attachments to the existing culture.
My thing is, for the Bond, why don't they just make her 00 Tampax or something and leave the guy stuff to the guys, I'm so used to, I'm from the old school. I remember the $6 Million Man. They never took the $6 Million Man away from us. They gave us the Bionic Woman. But they also allowed the Bionic Woman to work with the Bionic Man in several programs. Also, I used to watch a cartoon called He-Man. And they didn't get rid of He-Man. They created She-Ra that was riding with He-Man. So for me, I just think real quick, when it comes to young men, they need some sense of guidance. If you're coming from a single parent home, or if dad is there and dad is not there, sometimes the things on TV that young guys see kind of guides their thinking. And we need more programs pushed and more movies and shows pushed towards manhood than taken away from boys. But with that being said, what we want to do is talk about right now is the Manosphere offline and online, where it's been, where it's at, and where it's going. Socrates?
I tell you what, I'll jump with where it's going. There's been a lot of kind of conflict and strife as of recently, some disturbances in it, and I think a lot of that is due with introspection of the kind of the community on a whole. And I know that that's a healthy thing when individuals do it, reconstitute themselves periodically, particularly as you go through a life trajectory age. And I think the Manosphere is going through that right now as we approach, a multiple decade approach on this. And what we're seeing then is an event held in Warsaw, Poland, specifically chosen because of what Warsaw specifically means or meant in the last 20th century and through this one. Warsaw, more than any other city, has gone through more strife to almost complete, utter destruction. Repeated crisis events, one right after another, and after another. And historically, the people and lands of Poland have always been central roads through conflict, one way or another. And this is a people that understood absolutely what mattered in life and focused in on that. And in many ways, after coming out of a convention here where we have a lot of father-centric material, we have a lot of interest in that, we're going to be having a homecoming in October. I mean, we're leaving here and we'll be going home. I'm looking forward to that personally. I'll miss Warsaw dearly. But there's something to be said about coming home to the States, coming back to Orlando where we do this a lot. We're located headquarters, and having another very, very large event in October. And so I know the Manosphere is heading there in October. I'm looking very forward to being part of that and seeing all of you and many of the panelists here. And seeing that grow and seeing what new insights come out in the next few months. And I know it's going to be fast and furious because that's the world in which we're operating right now. But I think the issues we'll be discussing will be timeless.
So the Anthony, throughout all of his 21 events, has made a habit since day one of bringing in stuff that's not really Manosphere related. And I'm one of those guys. My first time I was speaking about the paleo diet. The second time was about politics and philosophy. And the third time was about cryptocurrency. My presentation was the history and cancer of feminism. So the first time I had an opportunity to actually speak of something that's near and dear to the movement itself. And I got to tell you, Socrates just spoke, and I got to tell you that when he was the first presentation of the first day when I got here, and on the heels of the last event, which was the Patriarch event, and on the heels of the whole Make Woman Great Again, and Anthony's going to do a women's conference, I think called 22Con, if I'm not mistaken, and all these things come together, and I just got supercharged. For my own, and this goes back a few months when Anthony, invited me to come. I said, for the first time, I get to actually speak, not on the periphery. And and I mentioned it in my presentation about how inspiring his presentation was for me, in the sense that I see this maturing of the whole movement. So that and Anthony and et al. Is starting to take heat for that from a lot of the people in there, which I said this shows how much this movement is needed and how much it needs to mature and how much it needs to expose the little girl wankers out there, the pussy boys who can't say, "Hey, shit evolves," and we can't just always be something for guys to go, 18 to 25-year-olds to go get their willies. There's people who need guidance, who want to find a good woman, who want to get married, they want to have children, they want to create a patriarchal legacy.
Yes.
There are so many things in the world, so many programs, government programs, narratives. Obviously, they're giving the hammer of Thor to women. There's so many things out there to empower women, and empower young girls, and encourage them that they have girl power and can defeat like 20 men in battle. And I think it's really important that there is something that reaches out to men and helps men become better. And I looked at my own life mission over the past few years, and I decided that that's my mission. to help men make themselves better. And so I'm happy to contribute to anything that serves that goal. And this conference definitely serves that goal. And whether it's guys learning how to get laid, and people say that that's an old subject, but it's an evergreen market. There are new 18-year-olds every year that need to figure some things out and learn about the lies that they've been told about women all their lives. To guys who want to start families. And so anything that's positive and helps men find their own place in this crazy mixed up world is great by me.
As a father of 3, 22, 20, and 16, I never really knew there was an issue. I'm a traditional conservative guy, which has been called tradcon, and I guess that is an insult in the manosphere. Insult me then, that's fine. I'm a traditional conservative guy and proud of it. I don't need to leave there in order to fit in. But I knew there was problems, not from raising a daughter, but by raising sons. And I'll give you 3 examples. Taking my son, who's now 20, when he was 10, taking him to what was a father and son breakfast at his elementary school. And it was called I went to things like father and son weekends, father and son sports, father and son camp. This was a father-like figure and son breakfast. I'm like, what the hell is a father-like figure? And there was a lot of sexual gender blurring that morning at that breakfast. And I thought, oh God, what have we come to? And it was only through my son's education that I noticed something was up. Second thing, Dad, there's this boy that keeps cutting in front of me in the lunch line, pushes me aside and stands in front of me, and everybody laughs. I said, next time he does it, punch him in the nose. He said, what? I said, just punch him in the nose real fast. Just pop. Pop. He won't expect it. He will stop. He's not going to fight. He goes, but I'll get in trouble. I said, you'll get in trouble? I said, listen, if you do it, I will go to the principal and I will have to deal with the principal, not you. And that was foreign to him. I did that when I was in school, and that young man that I was the nerd carrying the books, and a guy would come up and push my books, and they'd go flying down the hallway and papers flying all over the place. And I turned around once and just popped him, and he actually became one of my best friends. And we're still friends to this day. To this day. Third item was I was a theater nerd in high school. West Side Story, South Pacific, Dial M for Murder, classic stage plays and musicals. I went to one of my son's plays, and it was an anti-bullying play. And I thought, there really is a war going on, and young boys are taking this punch. It's not the girls. I didn't notice anything too crazy about raising my daughter. It was the boys that are under attack at all levels. Now, this was 10 years ago. And that got me interested in what's happening with men. Because now my son is 20 years old. He's got a beard, he drives, he's in college, works full-time. And some of his dad has rubbed off on him. And you just don't know how your kids are going to turn out. You're rolling the dice. They don't raise themselves. Just like that sandwich ain't going to make itself, boys aren't going to raise themselves. And I was very, very involved in raising masculine boys. And actually having to double down and not letting the education system raise my children. When I saw the anti-bullying play, I said, what the hell? When I heard my son say, I'll get in trouble if I punch him, I said, what the hell? When I heard about the father-like figure and son breakfast, I said, what the hell? And the other fathers looked at me like I was a nut. That's when I started.
Well, since the dawn of time, tribes, civilizations, they fight for territory, sexuality, reproduction, and resources. And today's civilization has thrown aside everything that worked in the past. The relationship between men and women, everything has been thrown away. Everything has been turned upside down. And this is deliberate to demoralize society. This will inevitably bring other societies to take over. Whichever tribe still has strong, aggressive men will take over the others. And men's responsibility has always been to protect and provide. So whomever will survive and withstand psychologically, mentally, spiritually, and physically this change today. And this is our role, to help as many men as possible, as many women as possible to understand this. Well, this will enable our survival, civilizational, but also physical. And those two things really matter. And it's the example George just said about school is so true. I had the same experience this spring. I have 4 kids. My oldest son had this first fight at school, and actually before the fight, he came home and said, "This guy is bullying me." And I said the same. He said, "Well, you should first talk to him and say, hey, I don't want any problem. Stop. If it continues, you fight. Because then, whether you lose or whether you win, doesn't matter. But everyone will know that you're a tough target." And that's what's important, because predators will go after the weak. So we have to be strong, not just for us, because we know that men, and we know that we are, in a way, we're expendable. In a way, in history, we fight, we sacrifice ourselves to protect the women who carry our children, which are our legacy, our genes. And we can be wise enough to have a room in society for everyone, of course. Doesn't matter. There always has been places for everyone in a society, as long as the men, real men, protect it and provide. And today they are trying to, for whatever agenda, I'm not sure exactly why, because as a marketeer, I used to be in marketing. When you put Thor as a woman or James Bond as a woman, you are suddenly losing 80% of your market.
Yeah.
Because these movies were targeted to men. So how are they even going to make money? So it's a self-suicide of an industry. No one goes to theaters anymore. I don't want to go to the cinema anymore. I don't want to watch TV anymore. And it's 15 years I haven't had a TV show. I haven't watched anything on TV for 15 years. I read books. I read history. I train with all these gentlemen here. And I hope I can get a better man. And this is what I try to do with my books. I even wrote a book on women. How to teach women to be better to work with us as men. Because we're complementary. Doesn't mean we have to be together all the time, but we can be complementary.
I think one of the things that you just said very important about that shift in culture, because what we've been seeing over the past generation or two is the use of shame to attack those things that are natural to men.
Mm-hmm.
And being the expendable sex, as it were, what's happened is the cultivation of almost self-immolation. You're expendable and you are shameful, so destroy yourself. And it's a very insidious kind of meme or momentum in culture where at the same time men are being shoved into that shameful self-assessment, you're misogynist, you're patriarchal, or what have you, you're toxic. But there hasn't been a corresponding change in our expendability. And that becomes a very fatal mix. Because not only are you shameful, we don't need you. We can get rid of you because there's more. Turning that around, I think, is one of the fundamental things. By our biological nature, just how we've evolved, what we are, what we do, what our passions and our principles and our power as men is. We are the ones who run to the sound of the guns. We are the ones who are responsible for protecting and sacrificing and building. We cannot stop being expendable without also accelerating the destruction of the West. But when you tie in that shame of your very identity in with that expendability, and you've got a very fast and very dangerous spiral.
Well, for me, when it comes to where we've been, I'm new to this, but I have a little bit of a few months history. And, you know, for me, you have family and then you have family. And since the late 80s, I've been on a journey that I know I wasn't the only one out there. And I knew there were people like me out there that had the same common thought process of helping young men become greater men, better fathers, and great husbands. But through the journey, I didn't find that. I kept looking, and luckily, through Donovan Sharp, he introduced me to Anthony Dream Johnson. Through Anthony Dream Johnson, I spoke with Mode One, who spoke highly. I mean, it was like they were reading off each other's cards of how highly they spoke of that man. And it was really, to me, a very exciting thing to be able to meet him. I was in town, I think it was around Daytona Beach. I was in town. I told him I was in town, and just like that, hey, why don't you come on over? Invited me into his home. Didn't know me from anything. Did not at all. Sat down with him, and we talked, and we bonded as men. And then it allowed me to meet Socrates. And then from Socrates, I was under the impression, I was like, wow, wait a second, whoa. This is like a goddamn Justice League here. It's like, this is like, wow, there's more of you guys out there? And then there was George. I mean, everybody on this panel, and everybody's going to be on the next show. I mean, everybody who was a part of this, it was a mind-boggling, eye-opening thing that you had a bunch of men who put their own egos aside to make sure that you guys out there had knowledge and understanding, and you learned. See, what you guys have to understand is we're not going to be here on this panel or on this planet forever. It is up to you guys to take the information that we're all giving you and you run with it and teach other people how to be men, because we can't do it all. We're going to do it while we're here, but it is up to you guys out there to carry that baton to keep things going. Now, with that said, that is where we've been. Now, Socrates, let's discuss where we are at, my friend.
I'm going to steal two lines of the gentleman from my left. Obviously, we talk about the maturing of the Manosphere. I think that's taking place. And I think there's going to be a very real acknowledgement of what Jack actually talks about, is that the expectation is that men need to become. And I think you're going to see that process enact. I think you're also going to see a coalescing of what you were just touching about, is that previously the internet allowed people to put content out, and you would go to a soul practitioner and you would kind of get the information from them, and you'd move over to somebody else, and they were not combined as a kind of a group. There wasn't a constellation of people. You had to go to the individual shopkeepers. There wasn't a collection. You're seeing that the content creators kind of coalescing together, and there's a lot of communication between content creators now. Sharing of ideas, information, back and forth, reaffirming information, kind of concerns about different things. And I think that in itself is going to accelerate and create a lot more depth and breadth of material as we support each other up here, as well as the men in areas that we're individually serving. And I think the world's going to benefit from all that. So I would expect to see a maturing of the Manosphere overall. I expect to see men understanding that they can no longer sit down and to go through delayed adolescence and continue that into the 40s and 50s and throughout life as an appropriate life trajectory. And I'm going to sit down and say, I think you're going to start seeing a coalition to a critical mass of content creators producing content that I think will go nuclear.
I was just, Socrates was talking, I'm thinking, Anthony, this is the 21, just let's call it the 21 brand, right? And it's very particular, especially if you look at its history going way back and how he has incorporated not just, yes, there was the whole PUA, the pickup stuff. I saw a lot of that, but I also saw a lot of really sensible things for male self-improvement. And now, the what Socrates was just saying, the maturing, it's like, okay, can't stay boys and pickup artists forever, not if you want to do your part to advance your expendability in civilization. So you're going to want to, at some point, to find what is a good one? You want to have kids. Well, how do you do that? Right. And so Anthony can take this brand, and he already has the women's conference, 22 Con, planned for some future. But I see even more than that. There could be a couples conference. There could be a families conference, and to where it almost becomes 21 church, in a sense, right?
Yeah, where you touch back.
Yeah, exactly. It's an all-encompassing brand that is for wholesome children, wholesome boys and girls, wholesome adolescents, wholesome young couples and families.
When I started writing in whatever was being called the Manosphere at that time, many years ago, it was for the men's rights activists. And it was basically a group of guys who were generally seen as jilted losers, who were just angry. And, they were just kind of, they'd gone through bad divorces, and they were just kind of complaining a lot and looking to change laws, which there were actually real problems that they were addressing, which still probably haven't been addressed. But what I'm seeing now is it being more focused on creating winners. And I think that that's really exciting, because I think anti-movements are always a failure. If you have something that's focused against the anti, it hasn't matured yet. It's like I know a lot of people who like black metal and things like that. It's like when you're still holding the upside down cross, you haven't gotten over it yet. You have to move. What are you actually for? Stop talking about what you're against. And I think it's pretty clear that it's becoming more about creating winners and again, helping men become the best versions of themselves.
It ain't easy being the dream and building the world's ultimate event for men. But that's not what gets me the girls. It's the soap. Which soap? Soap me up, baby. Tactical soap. The world's ultimate soap for men.
We have un gringo favorito.
Proud channel sponsor of 21 Studios and the Red Man Group. I'm Anthony Dream Johnson, and I approve this soap. Big time.
My thoughts are there's an evolution, and I think it reminds me of how there's many different church denominations, and there might all be there's the same goal, and that's to commune with God. And I believe with all the different groups, I think some are more on target than others. What I don't want to do is keep a child a child. Sometimes it's time to put away the baby bottle and start eating solid food and mature and to grow up. One of the reasons why a 60-year-old man like me does not talk about pickup and game, for me, this is my opinion, a gray-haired guy with a gray beard talking about game and picking up girls can borderline be creepy. That's just my opinion. I leave it up to the young, good-looking guys. So, and I was hesitant to even be part of the movement because I thought, is there really a place for me here? Maybe 30 years ago, I would have, when my hair was black and my beard was black and I looked like all these good-looking attendees that are here, what do I have to offer? And I've got 40 years of failures, successes, raising children, having gone through a divorce and all of the ugliness that's associated with that. And, your life can serve either as an inspiration for what to do or also what not to do. And I think I have been fortunate to be an example of both. I can't say that I've been a shining example my entire adult life. I've made the mistakes. I'm not afraid to talk about my mistakes. And if there is a young man or even a guy that's getting divorced and he's in his 50s and looks at me and says, man, you remind me of me. And he can learn one little thing to help that learning curve, to suffer a little bit less, to sleep a little bit better at night, then it's been worth it. I think that's the role that I'm currently playing. I'm not on the cutting edge bearing the sword like a lot of you young guys here. I'm the calm guy in the back, watching, observing, and I'm there to do triage on you when you fall, when you get hurt. And I'm happy to be part of the overall support system. But I think it takes multiple generations, and I kind of like like this panel here. This is an intergenerational panel right here. There's young men in the Manosphere, 22 years old. You have people like me. And there's room for everybody in it. And I'm kind of tired of the factions. I'm tired of people pointing fingers and, there's room for everybody. There's room for everybody, and everybody's opinion is valid. I'll end with that.
Well, I'm the new guy here. It's first time at the convention, and only, if you can say, red pill for maybe 6 months, a year. However, I've been preparing for what I think is going to be the collapse of the world, of the globalized economy, since 2005. So 15 years of thinking, of preparation, of action, writing books, and so on. And one of the things that always bugged me in this idea is that, okay, the world collapses, you and your friends and your family, your tribe, you survive, then what? Then you need to rebuild the world. But you need the skills. You need to understand who does what. What's important when you rebuild that world. Are you going to do the same mistakes? Are you going to have transgender, feminist commissions from the start? No. Let's wait 1,000 years to do the same mistakes again. No. Let's start from in the good way. And then I was wondering, well, who knows? Who can teach me? Who can tell me? Who I can share with on this? So I went around, I heard about you guys here. And of course, I heard about the pickup artistry part. So at my age, yeah, it's interesting. There's some good skills. I wish I knew that when I was 20. I wish I knew that when I was 15, for sure. But after a while, so what? You can seduce a woman, but can you keep her? Can you build a family with her? You need to learn that as well. So I need to teach my children one day. Actually, I would like you to also teach my children one day. So it's very important to talk, to discuss, to share. Because from my point of view, it's not just about survival. It's actually about life. It's about thriving. Today, during the collapse, okay, that's going to be a tough time. And after the collapse. Because I don't want to leave bad children and bad people to the world of tomorrow. I want to have the world of tomorrow, whether I'll be in it or not. I want it to be better, much better than what we had today. For sure, that's going to be easy. And also much better than we had in the past. We can do great stuff. We can rebuild the world. I was born in the 70s. And it was a time where we could joke. We could have fun with races, with sexes, with genders. And because we actually started to love each other for the first time in the world. For the first time, you could see a black guy and say, hey, I'm different than you, but what can we learn from each other? You can go and see women, and now we start to understand how we work, because you can go to the workplace and I can show a little bit of emotions. But this has been fucked up since then. And now everyone is a racist, everyone is a sexist, everyone is a chauvinistic pig. Everyone is violent, even if they may not look like it. but they're super violent when when you're on the internet, when you have this protection of anonymity, whatever, when they don't know who you are. You are super violent. You're a real fucking Nazi then. But no, we're all Nazis today, which makes completely no sense. So we have to build a better world, and we can. So it's really important to share. It's really important to talk, to chat, to have fun, to make fun of each other, but to learn.
What you said about it's about life. It's not just about that narrow niche of material. I think it's really important right now in the manosphere, and what we're seeing a lot of is there's a lot of information, there are a lot of assessments, there are a lot of opinions, and ultimately as men, our nature, our role is to act on information, not simply to wallow and masturbate within information. Right? And ultimately, if we and all of you don't apply the information, put it to work, put it to action in the real world, get your assessments on what's accurate and what's not, you're never going to move past the theory of it. And I think it was Yogi Berra who said, in theory, practice and theory are the same. In practice, they're not. You have to get out there in the real world. You have to make those real relationships, real brotherhood, real friendships. Test those friendships. Test those relationships. If you want to be a player and focus on game and picking up women, you have to get out there and approach. You have to get out there and test that material. If you want to have a relationship, you have to have a relationship. You have to test those boundaries, go through those experiences, find out what works and what doesn't. And it is always possible, always, to devolve into a negative mindset of, oh, there's an excuse why this won't work, or there's an excuse why that won't work. And ultimately, that's a cowardly way to not engage with the world and test yourself and rise. And I think right now, that's the decision that the Manosphere is struggling with. And moving past just identifying things and doing with to make things change and have a different future than what many of us are able to see coming if we don't take action.
Well, guys, I want to say, before I say what I need to say, we're getting ready to prepare to take your questions and everything. So if y'all are ready to have questions, go ahead and line up and everything. But what I want to say real quick is that I love George. George is like my brother. These are all my brothers. And every time I look at George can never do any wrong, but I have to correct George right here today, because George lied to all of you by telling you that he's too old to teach you game. Let me tell y'all something.
I was thinking that.
Yes. Hell yes. Because when I saw George, aka White Chocolate, in his workshop, he was spitting so many gems, mind blown. And he had the nerve and audacity to lie to y'all. And I want to apologize on his behalf, because he can be 208 and he can still spit you gems. So with all due respect, brother, I disagree with you.
Steve, can I add something?
Yes, sir.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because this morning we were talking about how you can't do this. Certain things don't work. And everyone remembers that series of the beer commercials, and they were on the TV and radio, the most interesting man in the world.
Yes.
It's because you can't do that anymore that George didn't pick up that role when he quit. Right?
And it's not just George, it's all of these guys. All of us are going to get old and we'll still have the knowledge. It's just you guys have got to learn false prophets from real men. The beautiful thing about these guys on this panel reminds me when I was a little kid. I always going back to my childhood, because I love watching kid shows like the Transformers, GoBots, and Voltron. It's when you took every computer part or car or robot or animal, whatever it was, they were strong by themselves. But what you get to see is when you come together and you connect together, you become an entity stronger than anything else you can think of. And this is what you have here, and you have coming up in the next hour or so. But you have real men coming together, not judging, not caring. It's not about their race. It's not about what they do for a living. It's the message that they are willing to give you, and all of these men are giving you great messages. So what I say before we answer questions is, please, guys, this is your opportunity to ask the Transformers, the Justice League, these great men questions that you can take home today with you and start working on yourselves. So, guys, the floor is yours. If y'all have any questions, please ask. Raise your hand if you have any questions, gentlemen. Okay, and hey, all the chat room, my chat room dogs, y'all can ask questions too, and we got you. Any questions?
Oh, it starts
Oh, you get started with
Yeah, it starts with you, Jay. He said Jay. Listen,
Stealing your thunder.
My name ain't Jack. I'm not Jack.
Well, strength, courage, mastery, and honor. It's yeah. I think as far as I've said to a lot of people recently, in terms of values. I mean, in terms of men and values, there are different cultures, and different cultures are going to have their different values. I mean, we have speakers who are Mormons, and we have speakers who are atheists and all kinds of things. And so they're all going to have slightly different values, so that becomes a little tricky. But I think that there's a combined interest in making men better, and I think that a good way to look at it, and someone else has said this as well, is different voices for different ears. Different guys need to hear sometimes the very same message, but they need to hear it from a guy who's maybe a little bit more like them, or who shares a little bit more of their values. And the message that we have to actually become men is important, and the message that we have to continue to challenge ourselves and to create male spaces and come together like that, I think is really important as well. And beyond that, some guys are going to go and have families, and that's going to be part of their main focus, and that's going to be a whole value system of its own. And then some guys are not. And, there's a lot of broken people in the world, and there's a lot of women who should not marry. And, there's not going to be someone for everybody. And so there's going to be guys, in the same way that there used to be dudes who died in coal mines and went out on whaling ships and had life adventures, there's going to be guys who have to find their path a different way. And so we're going to need all different voices for all different kinds of ears.
I like that, different voices for different ears. I think that's good. I think you have to pick your mentors, people that relate to you, people that are whose message is congruent with who they are. If I want to know something about a certain discipline, I go to somebody who's an expert in that and has the social proof to back that up. And I think we need to kind of check our mentors a little bit better, because in a world of, like Piero said, there's so many brave men out there. People get real brave behind a keyboard. Add a little alcohol to that, and then the bravado is just amazing. There's experts that have never left their laptop, ever. And they're doing shows, they're doing interviews, they're on camera, but they've never left their laptop. Choose your mentors wisely. Your mentors need to respect you and not berate you. People grow through nurturing, not through getting mocked. And I think it's important that we honor and address people's pain and what keeps them awake at night. I think that's real important. That's the role that I feel that this group is playing. I think it's important.
Very shortly, in throughout history. The Renaissance man, or the citizens of Athens, or the elites of Persia, or any other great civilization. There were people that, yes, they would provide, they would fight, they were warriors. They also had culture, they also had knowledge, and yes, they would pass it along, and they had skills, they had mastery. And mastery comes in many sizes. You have people skillful at making shoes, people skillful at plumbering, people skillful at poetry. And at the same time, they have to fight and they have to provide. So I think that men can really come in all shapes and sizes. And, size does matter, but or not, who knows? But certainly the helping each other, cross-breeding, cross-fertilizing knowledge, skills, is what makes us better. And yes, we cannot be, best in everything we do, but we can try, and we can advance, and we can learn, because then it makes us better fathers, better husbands, better leaders, and even better followers sometimes. Because in the tribe, you have one or two leaders, but then you have many skilled members and specialized people. There's a guy who makes the stones really nice. Another guy who can make the skin of the animals really well. A guy who can find the animals really nicely. And working together, you're a more efficient tribe. So of course, you must extrapolate this to today's world and perhaps to tomorrow's world. And one point that perhaps it would be nice to have your opinion as well is that I think we shouldn't be too concerned about James Bond being a female. And by the way, today they want to have James Bond as a black female to demoralize the majority of the Western world, which is white men. But tomorrow they will make movies of Mandela with a Norwegian or a Chinese actor, because eventually they want to demoralize everyone. It's not about just white men; it's everyone. So we should not be concerned to that. Like Crom on his mountain laughs at all that and just says, I ignore you. I will do something else with my tribe, with my people, with my brothers, and the women that are with us. And with that, you create a new world. So you have a mental secession from this. And that, I think, is also something very important that we need to learn.
So I think where mentors are concerned, I think it's, speaking from my experience, it's always been very important in my own life to identify mentors that were in a place that was frightening or dangerous, more important, dangerous for me to reach. The purpose of a mentor is not to make you feel good about yourself. The purpose of a mentor is not to do things for you. The purpose of a mentor is not to make things safer or more predictable for you. If you wish to rise, if you wish to improve, if you wish to augment your capabilities and your capacity and your performance, you're going to go through stress. It's going to hurt, it's going to be frightening, it's going to be potentially damaging. There may be things you have to pay. Through my background with the decades of the martial training I went through, there were costs associated. There were parts of my body that were permanently damaged. There were things that I had to understand about a broken heart, about a shattered mind, that would have been very dangerous to go through without a mentor. So how do you select one? How do you identify a mentor that has the integrated spirit, mind, performance, not just on a laptop, but in the real world? Part of that, too, becomes getting out into the real world yourself, and then you recognize authenticity when you see it. All you have is a digital existence. Snark on Twitter, twining on Reddit. You don't understand reality. You don't understand the real world, and your ability to select mentors will be broken. You must get out there. And then you see in the real world who is competent, who does produce results, who is successful in that particular arena. And then once you've done that, they may or may not be people that you like. They may or may not be people that you can trust. They may or may not be good men. But if they're not real, it doesn't matter. Find men. If you are looking for mentors, find men who have been through it before. That's what the word sensei means, in fact, and it's one who's been through it before. Been through it, not seen it. You have to have that real world experience, because ultimately, again, it's back to theory and practice. It's just theory, and you think you've climbed, and then you get out there and practice, and your mentor was full of shit, you're going to die. Well, that's the hard way to learn. So again, find people who have truly done it. That's your first step.
You know, a man is allowed to build his castle, and he is allowed to defend his castle when there are people at the doors trying to blow his castle up. And for a lot of guys out there today, y'all, well, not you guys, but there are people out there that are looking at that man for defending his castle as being weak. That's not. He's being strong, because a man defends his home. He defends his name. He honors himself. And with that being said, when it comes to mentors, you've got to watch out for the false prophets. You've got to watch out for the guys out there that rather be idolized by who they are and not what they say. It tells you a lot about their character and what they're doing to you, young men. A real mentor will not ever go against anybody trying to teach you men out there manhood. Anybody trying to stop, prevent, ridicule, memes, and all that other stuff, you got to take a moment and take a step back and look at who they're following and look at what they're thinking. You know, we all don't get along, but as a man, I can walk away and not say anything because I can show appreciation and honor for being a part of something. But when you come back and turn around and try to stab the hand or bite the hand that feeds you, it shows that you are thinking more about yourself than young men. And that's why it's important, when it's time to look for a mentor, bite the gold. See if it's fool's gold. Because if it's trying to prevent you from learning manhood, run away from that person. Because that person is only thinking, or they are only thinking about themselves and not you guys. So
I'm going to change it up just a little bit. When we talk about standing for something rather than opposing something, I think it's also really important when we talk about masculinity and manosphere. It's not necessarily just the natural procreation and family rearing that we anticipate. And it's one of the things that I really appreciate Jack for, because he expresses it and lives it in a unique way. And during his workshop, and I know not everybody was able to attend that, he sat down and talked about his book and the 4 virtues of masculinity, and ran it through the idea of inside of a business. What if you actually modeled a business based on the virtues of masculinity, strength and might, courage, mastery, honor, and developed a business model that served that, and then looked for a community that was getting shit on by a world that seems to want to crap on anything positive and masculine, and serve that. You know, we talk about tactical soap. That it would be a preeminent one that we've embraced, you know, to sit down and say, you know, they do a good product. They honestly do. But you sit down and say, the thing that I really liked about them, they like me. And you know what? I have a real hard time using anything Procter & Gamble, Gillette, and any of the umbrella programs that they do when they're exploiting division, divisiveness, and they're tearing good things down. I don't want my money going to that. I would rather, you know, promote and purchase from products and providers, service providers that support me and my ideas and my culture and reflect that. And so I think there's something to be said about standing for that. And I think it's important for everybody to find their own individual purpose. It may not be family rearing or family development. It very well be your dent in the universe is to create something wondrous, you know, out in the world, to have an impact on the arts, on the sciences, and business, and recognize that that is no less value than providing a legacy through genetic biological material. You know, my namesake, Socrates, I don't think he had children. I honestly don't know, but by God, we still know his name and are influenced by his legacy. And so don't ever let that escape you. And so when we talk about standing for something and promoting something, we're talking about beyond ourselves, but there's more than just one category and one discipline in which we can do that. And I'd like to celebrate anybody who does.
I'm going to change it up just a little bit more. So, but in the context of what, are you just against everything, or are you standing for something? So we've covered a lot of the micro ground on that. So let me go a little bit macro politics philosophy, if you will. There's a common term that you hear peddled about by the left is progressivism. Progressivism, which implies that we're someplace bad and we need to progress to someplace better. What's your standard value? You can progress a lot of the way towards hell. What is it? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? I like to call it, the rocket sled to hell is running right on time. With a lot of the stuff you see. So what is your standard? So the word progressivism itself, it's a mushy, mealy mouth, hydra-headed bullshit, term, weasel words, right? So when I think of what is a standard of value, my standard of value is pro-civilization, human civilization. And it doesn't take a lot to understand that. And if you have this in your mindset, and you understand history, you understand where we've come from to where we are now, it's very easy to see how we kind of peaked and are headed down. I hope it doesn't get as bad as Piero thinks it will.
It's not
right?
about hope.
Hopefully, yes, yeah. And so that's what I wanted to add to that is that we need human civilization. I look at we just celebrated 50 years, man on the moon, right? Haven't been there since. Well, I guess we had that period of time, but pretty soon it's going to be 50 years since we haven't been there. So, and I'm not saying we need to go. I'm just saying that we don't have these sorts of human. Back in 1969, when that happened, the whole world had their eyes on us. They couldn't believe it. Some of them still don't.
We could, yeah. I was about to say, we couldn't believe it.
Okay.
Well, now you have Chinese.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You traded well.
Yeah.
Yes. Do we? Okay. Well, guys, what would I do? We want to do a quick lightning round. Just the last few words that y'all would like to say. We'll start off with Socrates and go around real quick. What would you like to say, everyone out there?
Do not let this event be a singular moment in your life. Do not leave this event and just pack your notes and go home. One of the other speakers talked about taking your notes, putting them in action. Make one or two friends that will hold you accountable here. Make sure you stay in contact with them and springboard this event into your life. It's the only way you're going to have impact.
I just keep plugging, and I can't plug Anthony Dream Johnson enough for all of the efforts he's put into this. He started this at age 17. Can you believe it? Right? And it's just something great to be involved in. I spoke the first time in 2011, so we're talking I can't add 8 years. 8 years, and I've always supported Anthony, and even if I didn't agree with everything he did, and I'm not saying I do, I support what he's doing because I see the men that he attracts, and even the women as well. I think there's increasing number of women who aren't involved in the conference per se. They're very supportive in the background for what's going on because they see the results themselves.
We have members in the audience.
Yes.
I'm going to bounce off of Socrates and what he said because this is very important. It gets very frustrating when you go out and meet with men and encourage them to do a lot of things, and then they come back, whether it's the next month or the next week or whatever, and they haven't really done anything. They just like to go and have a cathartic experience and talk about their problems and so forth. And we have a saying out at my land, Volgang, that dreams hatched in darkness thrive in the light of day. And that's something that I've been encouraging as well for a long time. Whether it's from this conference or from the information that you're getting from 21 University or whatever, if you're not putting it in action, it's just really more masturbation. So, okay.
I like to say that there is wisdom in a multitude of counselors. And this organization has such a wide variety of people, teachers, experiences, and never feel the need to take sides with anything or anybody. Just learn from everybody. Galileo said, "I never met a man so ignorant that I couldn't learn something from him." You can be a teacher and a student at the same time. And every guy up here is a teacher, and every guy up here is also a student. And I would say emulate that.
Well, as a first-time speaker here, I can only say that I'm thrilled and I look forward to other conferences and to meet even more of you.
So what I'd like to close with for everyone is to keep in mind a very important process when it comes to your own growth, your own development, your own success. And that is within every encounter, every experience you have, is that potential for new understanding, new insight. You have to be paying attention and looking for it. George was saying about not taking sides and all of that, very important, because you must be focused not on sides, but on finding value and extracting value and building value and absorbing it and embodying it. Without that, you're just spinning your wheels. Grow, learn, see. I do this every time I encounter these men. Each one of them has something, whether it's George's poise, or whether it's Jack's solidity, or whether it's Steve's incredible spirit of joy. Take these things and make them part of your own.
Yeah, I just want to say in ending this is that I always tell everybody, take a moment and look at the graveyard. And just remember, everybody in there have one thing in common. They thought they had tomorrow coming to them. You don't know when your time is going to be up, so make sure you live every day like a man. Now, this is going to be the end of our show. This is being brought to you by TacticalSoap.com. And guys, do not forget the 21 convention, October 24th through the 27th. You can get your tickets at going to the 21convention.org. With that being said, this is the Red Man Group. Y'all have a good day. Thank you.